In this video, we're going to look at consumer law, what exactly this is and why it is important. Consumer law basically protects consumers from being exploited by businesses when they buy goods, services, or digital products. The main law you need to be aware of is the Consumer Rights Act 2015. This was created in, surprisingly, 2015, but before then there were many different consumer laws and it was pretty complicated to follow along. The old laws were outdated and they didn't really cover how to deal with digital products such as downloads or apps, which, as we know, is now a major industry worth a fortune. But this new legislation now specifically addresses this particular category. To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? You will also need to be aware of the Consumer Protection Act 1987, which is designed to make sure that products end up being safe. It makes the businesses that manufacture, rather than just sell, legally responsible, or we would say liable, for any damage caused by them by the poor quality or defective nature of the products that they create. The main thing about the legislation to remember is that it is all about ensuring products being produced are safe for the public to use. Let's take a look at the key points that are covered by these legislations. Goods and services must be as described. For example, the weight or contents, the colour or size. Goods and services must be of an appropriate quality, meaning that they are fit for purpose. And goods and services must be of an appropriate standard of safety. For example, children's toys must not be dangerous, and cars must be fit for the road. Now, let's have a look in a little more detail at what these laws say about buying goods, services, and digital products. Let's start with what the Consumer Rights Act says about the purchase of goods. Anything you buy must be of a satisfactory quality, fit for purpose, and match the description given. If not, you may be entitled to a repair, a replacement, or a refund. If you buy a pair of new AirPods and they stop working for no apparent reason just weeks later, you would understandably be pretty unhappy. They're clearly not of a suitable quality, and the product isn't fit for purpose as it can't actually be used. In a situation like this, the law would give you 30 days to reject the item that you've bought and get a full refund. It's really important you remember that it's 30 days, not 29 days, and not 31 days. It's 30 days. However, you shouldn't try to fix a fault when you realise that the product you've bought is faulty. You should let the seller know that there's a problem as soon as you can, to avoid breaking any warranties. These laws only cover the consumer when the goods are faulty. There are a number of things which are not covered. The law does not cover you if you just simply change your mind. You're not covered if you've damaged the item by not following the instructions provided. So if you have tried to use your dog's shampoo, well, that's on you. You're not covered if you've used the product for the wrong purpose, or if the problem was pointed out to you before you bought it. And finally, you won't be able to return this item if it has been accidentally damaged, like dropping your iPhone down a flight of stairs, for example. After the 30 days, you can still complain to the seller, but you might not get all of your money back. Instead, you might get a partial refund or a repair, or sometimes a replacement. However, if the repair doesn't work or there's also a problem with the replacement, you don't have to keep getting it replaced and you can instead get a price reduction. After these initial 30 days, you have up to 6 years to complain about a problem with goods that you've bought, as long as it's reasonable to expect the goods to actually last that long. If a computer develops a fault after 2 years, it's reasonable to go back to the seller, even if the warranty period ran out after the first year. But if a pair of cheap socks fall apart after 5 years, then you probably haven't really got a leg to stand on. Next, let's look at what the Consumer Rights Act says about the purchase of services. Services could include anything from a gardener to a barber to a private tutor. According to the Consumer Rights Act, any service you pay for must be carried out with reasonable care and skill, at a reasonable cost, and within a reasonable time. So if a decorator paints your walls the wrong colour or misses patches of the wall that they are supposed to paint, then they haven't demonstrated reasonable care or skill. The law states that if there's been a failure in that service, the service provider must put things right. That could mean carrying out the service again, but getting it right this time, or by giving you a price reduction. If they decide to repeat the service, this has to be done at no extra cost to you, within a reasonable time frame, and without causing significant inconvenience to your life. The law was actually changed in 2015 so that part of the Consumer Rights Act details how consumers are protected when they buy digital products or services. This wasn't really covered in the old legislation. So, for example, if you bought an app that corrupted your entire phone, there wasn't a clear way of dealing with it under the law. It only really dealt with physical products that you could take back to the seller. Under the Consumer Rights Act, it's now clear that digital purchases must be of a satisfactory quality, must be fit for purpose, and match the description, just like with goods. If not, you have the right to a refund, a partial refund, a repair or a replacement, depending on the specific circumstances. And if something you've downloaded to your phone, tablet or computer causes a fault or corrupts your device, you may be entitled to a repair or to compensation. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. Often in your exam, you will get questions about the time periods involved with consumer law. Here are the key points that you need to be aware of. There is a 30-day time period for customers to return faulty goods for a full refund, though some businesses, like Amazon for example, might offer more time than this as a goodwill gesture. This part of the Consumer Rights Act doesn't apply to digital products such as music and apps that have been downloaded. A customer could ask for a replacement on such products, and if that is not given, the customer is entitled to a price reduction, which could be as much as 100%. After these initial 30 days, if a product develops a fault within the first 6 months, it is presumed that that fault was there at the time of buying. It is now up to the seller to prove that the fault is with the customer. A customer may wish to argue for a reduction in price or a replacement within this time period. And then if a fault develops after these first 6 months, it's up for the customer to prove that the fault was there at the time of delivery. This is usually a much more complicated process for most customers. Customers actually have 6 years to complete any claim that they wish to make against the seller, but it can be more difficult as time moves on. In this video, we're going to meet Simon Shady, the owner of a used car dealership called Shady Motors. Most used car dealerships these days are pretty trustworthy, but unfortunately Shady Motors isn't one of them. Shady will take any opportunity to make some fast cash out of his unsuspecting customers. To try and keep his costs down, Shady has asked his friend, Honest Herbert, who runs a local garage, to create MOT certificates for all of his used cars. However, Herbert hasn't even looked at the cars, and he's only charged Shady £5 a certificate instead of his usual price of £50. Shady then advertises all of these cars as having a full MOT, which helps him charge much more for them. Shady has also found a hack to change the mileage of the cars he's selling. His years of experience in the motor trade tell him that high mileage cars sell for a lot less than low mileage ones. He generally shaves off about 25% off the mileage of each used car that he sells, to get a better price from his customers. Selling cars with a fake MOT and a doctored mileage is clearly illegal. And Shady is selling cars that are not as described. But that's only the start of it. Shady has contracts at the local scrapyard who buy up cars that have been written off after accidents. The scrapyard is supposed to only sell spare parts from the cars, but they have a hush-hush deal with Shady, where if they get 2 cars of the same model that have been written off, one with damage at the front and the other with damage at the back, they'll let Shady know. He'll buy them both for a super low price. Shady and Herbert from the garage then wheel the 2 parts of the car together and give it a quick spray of paint, and sell it to the next customer they feel they can palm it off on as a special offer. Let's face it, a car like this could hardly ever be described as fit for purpose. In fact, because of these dodgy operations, Shady has a few dodgy ratings on Google reviews. However, things soon start to get much more serious. It starts when the Smith family buy a car for their 17-year-old daughter Lily, who's just passed her driving test. She just uses the car for driving to and from college and for meeting up with her friends. What her parents didn't realise is that the car has a fake MOT certificate from Honest Herbert. And after she's owned the car for a year, Lily's mum books it in at the local Quick Fit for its first official MOT. She gets a phone call from the concerned manager who tells her that there are lots of problems with the car that seem to have been there before she purchased it over a year ago. He asks where she bought the car, and she tells him it came from Shady Motors. Shady by name, shady by nature, says the Quick Fit manager. He's got a bit of a reputation, and it isn't a good one. Lily's mum is pretty angry about this, and she goes onto Facebook to vent her anger. She sees that she's not the only one. The Quick Fit manager decides to take a trip to Shady Motors and have a little look for himself. He spots a special offer car and he asks if he can have a closer look. He's pretty shocked when he sees there's signs of a dodgy paint job, and he can see under the wheel arches that the front part of the car used to be red, even though the car is actually silver. He suspects that it might be 2 cars welded together. The Quick Fit manager calls the police to let them know what he's seen. Within a week, Shady Motors has been shut down for breaching consumer law, and his reputation is in absolute tatters, and, well, rightly so. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learnt to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions, each with detailed feedback, which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? So let's have a look at the potential impact of consumer law on a business, starting with the advantages. Businesses must make sure that the quality of the goods they sell is up to standard. Goods must not be damaged or faulty when bought. This helps a business from avoiding getting into serious trouble with the law and possibly receiving a large fine. These consumer laws also ensure that the businesses are providing safe goods and services, and this allows them to avoid any bad publicities for injuries or illnesses experienced by their customers. As Shady sells second-hand cars, they don't necessarily need to be the best standard possible, but the quality must reflect the price being charged. If Shady Motors had built up a good reputation due to the improved quality and safety of their cars, consumers would have had an increased confidence in purchasing cars from them, and this could have led to higher sales in the long term, therefore meaning the potential of increased profits. So, now let's have a look at the disadvantages of following consumer law. We saw that the cars sold by Shady Motors certainly don't fit the required quality standards. If they were to aim to meet these standards, they would have had to spend money on training, quality assurance, and on better quality used cars. And the same is true for many other businesses out there. There are ultimately increased costs involved in ensuring compliance with these laws. To comply with these laws, a business may have to accept a number of refunds, and this can really start to eat into their profits. As Shady Motors don't sell cars of satisfactory quality, they can expect customers to return cars for a refund under the Consumer Rights Act, and this is definitely going to impact on Shady's profits. Customers can claim compensation for damage, death, or personal injury. Once again, this puts pressure on Shady Motors to ensure that it has procedures in place to make sure that the goods it produces are free from defects. As Shady Motors sells cars that are of a poor quality or defective, then there will be claims from customers against them, which can be very costly in compensation payouts. It takes a long time to build a good reputation, and it can be quickly destroyed if customers report defects or poor service, especially on social media. Customers who see that Shady Motors have been supplying defective cars will head out and buy from their competitors instead. And in extreme cases, like with Shady Motors, a bad reputation can be very damaging and can lead to a seller going out of business, and even, in some cases, being arrested. In reality, most businesses want happy and satisfied customers, and they will make sure that the products or services that you buy are of a good standard and that you receive good customer service. But as we've seen with Shady Motors, there are still a few dodgy businesses out there, and that's why consumer law actually exists. Always remember that you are covered by these laws whenever you make a purchase. But if you hope to be an entrepreneur, you will find yourself on the other side of the fence, and you will need to ensure you are fully compliant with the consumer law at all times if you ever hope to be successful. This has been the BizzWizard.